Hi guys, and welcome to the new series of Lightroom Basics, I suppose I'm going to call it. Yeah, Lightroom Basics. So for those of you that are new to Lightroom, these videos hopefully will help you get on your way and hopefully stop you making some simple mistakes that I may have made when I first started using Lightroom, and I suppose a lot of other people make and then wish they would have done better to start with. So yeah, I'll get Lightroom loaded up. I'd just like to say that if you've already used Lightroom, like literally at all, this video is probably not going to help you. As we get further into the series, the videos may help you slightly, but this is really aimed at people who's never used Lightroom before. As I suppose once you first load Lightroom up and you start playing with it, all the sliders and options can be quite intimidating. So like I said, it's going to be really basics. So if you already know how to import now, to manage your files, to have a good file system, to create export profiles, this video is probably not for you. So maybe wait a couple of weeks until I get to the more advanced stuff, and tune in then. For those of you that are staying, let's crack on. Right, so as you can see on screen, I have Lightroom already loaded up. So this is the normal window that you'll be presented with when you first load Lightroom, which is the library module. So you have a few different modules up here. The main two that you'll be using will be library and develop, unless if you want to make slideshows perhaps to show on your TV, etc. But you've got your library, which is going to be where all your images stay. This is sort of like your catalogue, and develop, which is where you're going to go in and actually tweak your photos and process those raw files. Hopefully you're shooting in RAW if you're going to be using Lightroom. If not, you're going to be very, very limited to what you can do. So I suggest, if you're not already shooting in RAW, get your camera and switch into RAW capture mode rather than JPEG. So first thing we need to do is get some images into Lightroom. So what you're going to do is down in the left hand corner here you have the import button, so go ahead and click it. That will then load up your import dialog. I do have a memory card already in. Give it a few seconds. You can see it's going to do some really strange stuff because I've already got some of these images imported. So we'll just let it sort out the images first. If it's a memory card that you've put in and you haven't imported images already, this won't happen. It'll just literally load all the images up. There's a few options up here. So you have all photos, which you can see the greyed out ones are the ones that have already been imported into my library. And then you can choose new photos. So if you've got a memory card that you've already imported some photos from and you forgot to delete them, you click on new photos, it will only load up the images that it doesn't think of already in your library that haven't already been imported. So you can either leave it selected all or deselect all. I'm going to deselect all because all I want to import is these ones here, which are the York Minster. So I've just shift selected to select them all, and then if I tick one of them, that's going to select all of those images. So the next thing you're going to do is, this is where you really do need to make some kind of file system that's going to work for you, where all your images are going to be catalogued so you can find your images nice and easy, instead of just importing them all into one folder and it turns into a massive mess as your catalogue grows. And then you really want to find that raw image again. And although in Lightroom you can probably find it, if you're just in your actual folders using your Finder or your Explorer if you're on Windows, it's probably going to be quite difficult, as you can see your camera names all these with like a sequence file number, so you'd never remember all those off the top of your head. So for my file system, what I use is I have a external hard drive which is on my network, so I can access it from all my computers, which is called public, and then on the public hard drive there's a folder called Photo Library, and then that's where I import all my images to. So with Photo Library selected, we can then go ahead and put in our destination. So you'd want to tick the into subfolder and then name the folder what you want Lightroom to create. So this is obviously York Minster, so we can name that York Minster, which then, if we look down here, you'll see a greyed out one that's called York Minster with a little plus on it. That means Lightroom is going to create that folder as it imports these images. A few of the other options you have up here, so you can either copy as a DNG, which is a raw file in other words, which it's going to do anyway if you've already shooting in RAW, which as you can see I'm in NEF, which is Nikon RAW file format. So then you can either copy, which means it's going to copy them from your memory card to these to the folder you've selected. Move, which is literally going to take them off of your memory card and put them into a folder. Or add, which is literally going to leave the files where they are, just add them to the catalogue, which you're not going to be able to do if you're on an external memory card. That's mainly for if you're moving things around, if they're already on your computer. So chances are it's going to be copy, which will copy them from your memory card into the specified folder. So what you can do up here, let's go back up to the top. Build previews, I'll leave that as minimal. We don't want it taking forever as it's importing and stuff, so just leave that as the minimal. Build smart previews. So what you could do is, if you wanted to build a smart preview, you could then work on the image while that hard drive is offline, which I always have a connection to my network drive, so I don't really need to build smart previews, and they do take up a considerable amount more room on your hard drive, so I wouldn't bother. Don't import suspected duplicates. Obviously you want that selected, unless if you're wanting to import the same image twice for some reason, which never understand why that'd be that you'd want to do that. As Lightroom, as you edit images, it's called non-destructive, so you don't actually you edit the raw file, you don't actually make any like finalized adjustments to the image. It's more of a copy sort of thing. Make a second copy, so if you wanted to use Lightroom to back up your imports, you could do, but I back up myself anyway. My hard drive backs up automatically using a different program, so we don't need to do that. And add to collection if you want. If you have some collections, you could always add it to that. So I'll talk about collections in a later video, but you could add to collection, and then you could add it to a quick collection, or you could have a collection called landscapes or I don't know, buildings, and it'd add to that collection. File renaming down here, so you could have Lightroom rename your file, so you could have it so it would rename it with a date or custom name, etc. I'm just going to leave it as it is, unticked. And then you have develop settings too, which if you wanted to, you could edit change and do some like pre-processing, I suppose. Chances are you're probably not going to want to do that because no image is going to want the same processing doing to it, unless if you have a definite look and all the images are very similar in exposure and colour, etc. I suppose one of the things you could do is, if you wanted to do a black and white, you could import them all and convert them all to black and white for you. I'm just going to leave those as none. Metadata, none, because most of my metadata comes from my camera anyway. But one thing down here, apart from selecting where you're going to import to, what I would really recommend that you use, which will help when cataloguing all your images and trying to find an image, is using keywords. So really I can't emphasize enough how much importance it is to get into the habit of keywording your images. It's something I forget to do every so often. But keywords, so we've got just a couple, ideally about 4 or 5 I imagine would be good, but I'm just going to have York with a separate with a comma, and then Minster, which I believe is enough description for me. If I ever wanted to find one of these images, I'd just be able to use a search in Lightroom and type York Minster, and these images would appear without having to go through my library and try finding them manually. So we've already selected all this, so then the last thing to do would be to click Import. Let Lightroom do its thing. Depending on your file sizes and how fast access you have to your drives, it can take a couple of minutes. So if you're importing 500 images, it could take a little bit longer. So at that point, if you're importing quite a few images, I'd go and make yourself a cuppa, sit back and relax until it's finished doing its thing. Hopefully this shouldn't take too long because there's only a few images to import. Saying that, it's probably going to take a while just because we're recording, and that's just the way life is. Right, so we're back. So yeah, the images have all imported now. You can see there's a little tag in the bottom right hand corner of the image, which means that these images have had keywords added to them. You'll see different icons appear on the bottom here as you develop them and do different things to them. But yeah, so that's the basics of importing. Like I say, the main thing is to definitely make sure that you keyword your images so you can find them nice and quickly, and secondly, have some kind of file system in place. Have all your raw images stored in a certain area, and then use that subfolder feature to have the images import into certain folders. The last thing you want is one folder with all your images in, and it just turns into a big mess. So yeah, have some discipline and make sure when you import in images that you have a good file system in place. It'll just make life so much easier later on. Right, so that's that bit done. And the other part of this video, so we've done import. Once you've edited images, you're going to want to know how to export the images. I'm not going to do any editing today, but one thing I would do, or suggest that you do, is make an export preset, or a couple of export presets, just to speed up the process when you're wanting to export your images from the raw file into a JPEG or whatever file type you would like to export into. So without me rambling on, let's go into the export module. So click export. It's just going to export this first image here. Obviously it's like awful image, it's blown out and stuff. But to make the let's just remove this because that's the one that I added earlier. So you can see I've already got some user presets. I have a 4K and a couple of Instagram ones. That one wants removing, I think. That one. So it's those two. main reason I have one what exports to a folder where all my Instagram images go, and a 4K one which exports in a 4K resolution, mainly for viewing on a TV screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a preset now. So export. As a basic one, obviously a lot of these images, if you're exporting, you probably want them in the same folder, in the same location. So we'd have same folder as original photo. The Instagram one, I have a specific folder, so you can choose that and then choose where you want the export to go to. But for this one, we'll set same folder as original photo. But then what I would suggest that you do is click the put in subfolder and then name that exports, which then that means, so at the moment we're in York Minster, so what that'll do is when we export the image inside York Minster, there'll be another folder called exports with the exported images in, if that makes sense, just so that then when you want to actually get to your JPEGs, you know exactly where they're going to be. Just makes life a little bit easier. Existing files, leave it as ask what to do, which then if you export in the image and then you do another edit and export it again, it won't just automatically overwrite it or anything. It'll ask you if you want to use a custom name, which you're probably going to want to do, unless if you've edited it and you don't like the original. You can have it to rename to a custom setting of your choice, or you can leave it as it is. Video, it's not going to affect video because it's not a video that we're exporting. So the main one that you're probably going to want to do is your file settings. So depending on how you want to export it, so original, just export it as it is. Mainly you're probably going to want to export it as a JPEG, and then your quality setting depending on how good of resolution you like, which I like to export my images at 100%. Maybe if you're exporting for like a Facebook page or your Instagram page, you may want to reduce that down to about 80%, as Facebook just destroys images anyway. Instagram doesn't destroy them as much, but Facebook definitely changes the quality. So if you already lower it, it depends. I'm never happy when I upload an image to Facebook. It always looks awful. But anyway, yeah, so I'll have quality 100% just for your normal exports. Image sizing, so this is where you can choose how big you want your file to be in pixels or inches or centimeters. We don't want to resize it because that could create it looking stretched if every image is the same width. That's where I have a 4K one where I have that set to that resolution, pixels, width and height, but obviously I only export images using that 4K setting that I know will actually look okay. This image wouldn't, as it'd stretch it massively, and it'd just look stupid. But anyway, last thing down here, you've got a sharpen, which if you've already edited the image, you've probably already sharpened it anyway, so I don't bother with that one. Metadata, if you want to strip the metadata out, you can do here. I just leave it as all metadata, I'm not too bothered. In my metadata here, there's no address or anything where I live. It's just all the camera settings and my what camera I used, date and time, and the creator info, which I'm quite happy for it to be there. Watermark, if you want to add your watermark, which we will do in another tutorial where we make a watermark and use this setting. But for now, we're going to leave it empty. After export, you can have it so it'll load in Finder or whatever or load into Photoshop, but we're just going to have it to do nothing. So then, before we click export, we're going to add that. So it'll save these presets. So it's going to go into user presets, and we'll call that export folder, which means that it's going to export into an export folder in the same directory as where the images originally was imported into. If that makes sense. Great. So you can see it's there. So we can export that. That'll export that one image. So now, if you ever want to export images, you could either select one or whichever. So if we select this one, and then go to File, Export with Preset, you can see it's there. You could just click that one, and that'll export that with the exact same settings as what we've just set up, which, as you can imagine, makes things slightly faster than having to change the settings all the time. Obviously, if you're wanting to do a certain export, then you're just going to export and choose whichever settings you require. Right, so I think that's long enough for the first video. As you can see, Lightroom is huge and there's a lot to learn. But if you've stuck with me for the first one, well done. If you've liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. Hit the notification little bell to be notified when I upload more videos. So the next tutorial will be next week. I'm going to try doing these once a week just to build up a series. So in the next one, we will jump into the develop module and go through the basics of what each slider does, because if you've already had a look round in the develop, you'll notice there's a lot of sliders and each one does something a little bit different. So again, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. See you all later, guys. Bye.